Hey guys, so as we get deeper into the Legacy of Destruction format, I wanted to provide another update in terms of the decks that are topping at the regional as well as national level events, and also some trends as well, just to help you prepare for your next big event, especially YCS Indie coming up very soon. So before we continue, definitely go check out those discount codes for Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles as well as sleeves, discount codes in the description below. As always, definitely go check out YGOProDeck.com as well as Ivan's spreadsheet for their incredible work in terms of keeping track of all the decks that are topping. So in terms of the decks that have topped in the last 3 weekends worth of events now, and if you wanted to watch the first couple weekends of Legacy Destruction format, you can definitely go check out that regional report as well. Anyways, this is what the pie chart's looking like. We've had a lot of regional and national level events the last few weekends, and some of the national events, they're quite big, so it's not just top 8 for some of those ones. It can even be as big as top 64. Snake Eye, of course, and various different versions of Snake Eye taking the top spot. But you know what, Tenpai Dragon, definitely a big bit of a step up from the last weekend's, or rather the last regional report I did in terms of top cut representation. Voiceless Voice definitely still in that solid third spot. Branded Despia, honestly, really solid in terms of kind of still being the top 5. Obviously, a lot smaller than some of the other decks that are topping. Of course, Fire King taking a bit of a step back now, and I guess people are just reverting back to pure Snake Eye, you know, even with the ban list, kind of like the indirect hits and everything. So there's a lot of other things to unpack here, like Melodious, still kind of solid as well, like tier 2 level. Labyrinth is still there. Runic Stun, unfortunately, is still sticking around. Centurion actually took a bit of a step up, I think, this time around as well. And now, of course, Kashtira, pure Kashtira at least, kind of taking a step back, but in terms of the Kashtira package that we're going to get to, is in Snake Eye or some of the other decks, it's actually been very popular. Ubel has also kind of stepped up a little bit, and it's only going to get better once it gets like that new support as well. Flunder is still around, and a bunch of decks in the other section. Of course, if you saw my previous regional report breakdown of the first couple weekends worth of Legacy Destruction format, this is what it looked like. Pretty much the same, but as I mentioned, sort of like the Tenpai Dragon is kind of stepping up even more now, and Fire King taking a bit of a step back. In terms of the other decks that topped in the last 3 weekends worth, there were a lot, as I mentioned, in terms of, you know, a lot of national level events, regional level events. So in terms of 9 to 10 decks, I think Rika Sun Avalon plus Aromage, I guess, is something to keep an eye out for. This past weekend really started doing pretty well, so definitely something to note for YCS Indie perhaps. Tier elements, there's even a couple, you know, Paleozoic tops as well, and of course that was made famous by Top Tier Gaming. He finished first place at his regional. You should definitely go check out his channel, by the way. Really good content. Vanadium, surprisingly, actually kind of hanging in there in terms of like solid number of tops, especially recently, even despite the ban of like Barone. Obviously not as many people are playing Droll anymore, especially in the main deck, as you would have seen in some of my YCS top cut breakdown, so that's at least nice for them. Silent Mangrate is another one to watch out for, I think, because it especially recently have done quite well in terms of regional and or national level tops rather. It even finished first place in nationals on the Slovenian one, which you can check out the deck profile on my channel as well. Chimera is still pretty solid. I think most of them were brand versions though, rather than the Melodious kind, which of course had some initial popularity with like the Legacy Destruction support. And then there's some also Pearly. I think the higher rated versions at least have been kind of going up lately, but you know what, I think it's actually a pretty solid option. X Pearly Noir, definitely going to be kind of hard to out for a lot of different decks out there. Sprite has been quietly getting some tops here and there. There is a live twin Sprite that topped recently, so I'm going to try to get that profile for you soon. Rescue Ace, as I mentioned, is always one of those decks that I keep saying that it's just so good, but it's just not really topping because not a lot of people playing it because they'd rather just play Snake Eye, I guess, if you're playing Fire. Pure Unchained, but Dragon Link was a bit of a surprise too. I really thought, you know, especially with like Barone and Savage being banned, I thought they, well, I mean, they did initially take a big step back, but I guess at least they're actually kind of hanging in there. Light Sworn's a really interesting one, of course. They did get some new support in the Legacy of Destruction set, so there's going to be some different variations of Light Sworn as well. Barensis was actually quiet for the first few weeks, but most recently, actually, I think 2 of them actually even topped the Slovenian national, so they really like Marensis over there, clearly, because this is how that happened before as well. Dinomorphia and Drytron, kind of interesting that not just 1 but 2 Drytrons topped recently. I mean, I know a Voiceless Voice can also support this archetype. I don't actually know if the topping ones played that, but I mean, presumably it can only make them better. Vanquish Soul definitely take a step back. And Volcanic, we've seen this a little bit before in terms of it's like an FTK deck. Usually it's a 60 card pile. They play like Snake Eye stuff, Horror stuff. So it's not really like a rogue deck per se, but you know what? I guess it's quote unquote interesting, although definitely not fun to play against because I've definitely lost against this strategy as well at one regional, and it's really interesting. And then a bunch of one-offs that did top in the most 3 weekends worth of events. I'm not gonna have all the images out, but here's the kind of like a list sorted alphabetically. I think some of them we've seen from every now and then, like something like Darkwing, or rather Blackwing rather, and Dark World. And you have something like Infernoble Knight actually kind of topped. You even post Isolde Band, of course. Dark Magician is really cool. I'm gonna touch on that at the end of the video. And also something like Goblin Biker. It's got a couple tops now post like its initial release in Phantom Nightmare. Memento is another kind of new support that we'll get to as well a little bit later. Plunder Patrol, I'm waiting on a deck profile to be sent to me for that one, so stay tuned. I think that's pretty interesting because of course it's one of the more original archetypes that's been released recently. Shark, that did top. Definitely go check out Shark Daddy's channel for that one. And Shining Sarcophagus, I recently provided a profile on that one as well, and we'll get to that. And the Virtual World, it won the Spanish Nationals, and I'm getting a deck profile sent for that one as well very soon, so stay tuned. Now, in terms of the deck playstyle, combo, kind of relatively staying stable, really more so just represents all the Snake Eye decks that are out there. Mid-range deck, kind of like, something along the brand Despia, Rescue Ace. It's a little bit subjective in terms of how you might categorize it, but that kind of took a step back, but beat down, of course, mainly because of Tenpai really having increase in representation. That's been going up. Control kind of on the way down, and stun is about the same, which is, I guess, at least it's good that it's not going up, but 2.7% I think is still a little high in terms of how much stun I want to see in topping decks. Now, in terms of the different packages that are played among some of these topping decks, Snake Eye obviously is the clear-cut number one because pure Snake Eye, basically, that is this deck, right? But, you have, of course, something like Rescue Ace, they're going to be playing in Fire King, they're pretty much Snake Eye decks. And then, but at the same time, you have something like Dark Magician, they were actually playing a Snake Eye package too. Kashtira is something that's very popular among Snake Eye decks themselves, but there are some, and this is more so like, something like, not just Fenrir or anything, that wouldn't count as a package, but more so, you're playing the field spell, you're typically playing like Unicorn and the Birth that helps you get the body. So it's definitely been quite popular recently. Melodious, of course, at the beginning of Legacy Destruction format, I think a little bit more popular in terms of as a package. You've seen it in something like Snake Eye, something like Chimera, and even Voiceless Voice, and I'm sure some other options as well. So you know what, it's still kind of in the background there. Horus and Runic definitely taking a little bit of a step down because most of the decks that are topping, of course, are kind of like Snake Eye decks anyways. Horus, typically you're seeing that in something like, let's say, sometimes Centurion, or even there's like Horus Stun, and Runic at this point is really just purely for stun decks. Now, in terms of Snake Eye variants, I was a little bit interested in which one was most dominant. For the most part, 59% was like the pure version. Kashtira, though, taking about more than a third, so that is pretty hefty. Definitely something to be on the lookout for. Melodious, not as much, and definitely there was one or a couple that were playing like Horus stuff. If you look specifically for each of these variants, in terms of kind of like, the small trends in the last 3 weekends worth of events, Pure is actually steadily increasing, I guess maybe at the beginning, or rather kind of midway through of this Legacy Destruction format. Maybe they were testing out with the different versions, but maybe reverting back to like the Pure one. Kashtira is kind of like up and down for that one, and then Melodious was already low to begin with, but in the most recent weekend worth of regional national events, really none of the Snake Eyes that topped were playing Melodious. Is that a trend that would continue into YCS Indy? I'm not sure, but at least that's something worth noting. In terms of deck costs, I like to always do this every now and then, especially for a lot of people who, want to maybe think this is the time to pick up a new deck. So medium price, it actually went down almost $100, which is kind of good to see. You always want to see this game be a little bit more affordable. The cheapest one usually is like a stun deck, and that's what it was this time around as well. It's usually like stun or something like Sword Soul, for example. The most expensive deck this time around was the Centurion list that was also playing a Snake Eye package as well. In terms of Snake Eye particularly, you know what? The median cost actually went down by $200 in just comparison to like 3 weeks ago. So that's actually a pretty big step down. And I guess a lot of the cards are actually going down in price. And you kind of see that with Tenpai Dragon as well. It was around, this is almost a $100 decrease as well in terms of median price compared to a few weeks ago when I provided the regional report. So you know what? The supers are definitely more expensive. Of course, Trident Dragon, that is the most expensive one probably. You don't technically have to play it. Obviously, if you want to play optimally, you would play it. It is getting reprinted in the Megatins, which is a little bit unfortunate because it essentially means it's after the NAWCQ, and at that point this deck would have been out for like 5 months. They're bound to get probably like a hit or two, so that's kind of an unfortunate timing there. Voiceless Voice, this is also taking a bit of a price down as well, so not cheap of course, but you know what, still pretty solid for a very meta relevant deck. And then Melodious is roughly around the same, around 300 plus. It is a tier 2 strategy, but so definitely something worth considering. Lastly, in terms of some deck list highlights that I thought was really interesting, of course, is the Buster Blader / Dark Magician list, which is really cool. I don't know if I've seen it that being mixed together that often. Really just like a throwback to Yu-Gi, I guess, except for the whole Snake Eye part, I guess. But I think this is really cool. You can definitely go check out the deck profile. I'll link that down below. I believe it was in French though, but at the same time, you know what? I think this. I'm really excited to see what this actually ends up doing. Also, if you do like Dark Magician content in particular, you should definitely go check out Matthew YGO. You can find his channel link on my homepage as well, just in terms of fellow small Canadian Yu-Gi tubers, so really go check him out as well. You also have Memento, which is, I guess, another throwback to nostalgia, with a lot of these cards kind of like being a remake of some of the older cards that we've seen back in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't actually really know what this deck does, I'm going to be honest, but I did provide a profile on my channel that you can go check out as well. And yet another throwback to, kind of nostalgia bait is the Shining Sarcophagus deck, which I believe is the only one to top so far in this Legacy of Destruction format. Travis, he actually did offer to, have a conversation with anyone who has questions about this deck through his Twitter. You can go check out this deck profile on my channel, and the link to his Twitter account will also be there as well. And then lastly, we have Lightsworn Centurion at top, which is really interesting because I thought, Lightsworn players would maybe lean towards more so Runic or the Teal Element version, but to see this top, I think is really cool. I guess they're really committed to like the Synchro version of the plays. Of course, Calamity Lock, while unfortunate that it's around, I mean, if it's available, you might as well do it because it's going to help you win. So again, this is another one that is on my channel for a deck profile, so definitely go check that out. Alright guys, so that was it for another regional report for this Legacy of Destruction format. Hopefully that was helpful in terms of preparing you for whatever future events that you may have coming up. Definitely a huge thanks to all of you for watching. Huge thanks to my Patreons and sponsors as always. Definitely a big thanks to my newest Patreon, Daniel Mills. So really big thanks for all of you. Anyways, thank you for watching, and well, take care guys.